God, I have so many questions for you. I wrote so many questions.
We think we don't have to worry about that until then, but those brain changes are happening now. You're showing symptoms in your 50s or 60s. You probably started having some brain issues in your 30s or 40s. We're making a connection here, people. Like, let's take care of our brains in your 30s so that, you know, you have a healthier brain later. It's preventable, it's reversible. So defeating to hear, well, there's nothing you can do. That's not true.
What you're mentioning are things that, like, anyone can do to help prevent.
I know too much about dementia to not want Alzheimer's, and part of that is alcohol. A, it was an expectation, and B, at some points I felt pretty judged.
What are, like, all of the services you offer? I know you do trainings, classes.
If it's not working, you gotta do something different. Sometimes we overmeet the need. The intention is not to deceive them. The intention is to soothe and to provide the care that they need. If you're ripping them into our reality, you're now up here, you're above them, you're not any better than them. It's okay if you don't want to be a caregiver. You have to be able to say, I can't do this. I need help. You feel proud. You feel like, you know what, if I can do that, what else can I do? Because of something that I created, and that's just like gold to me. So,
oh my God, yeah, things like that, like, get me really emotional.
There's kids that are going to come after us and kids that are going to come after them, but if no one's teaching them that, then it's never going to happen. What impact do you want to have had? Kind of tended to like to fix things. It's okay to have those bumps in that uncomfortable space. It's just moving through it. Switching that lesson from, I'm not going to fix everything, but I can help. You know, I might not be able to cure dementia. I might not be able to cure everything that ails every caregiver. Go do something for someone else that's not yourself.
All right, I'm gonna light this ceremonial podcast candle. It's official. Starting. Hey everyone, it's Kimmy and Timmy introducing this episode of the 2BU podcast. Thanks for coming by to watch. So this episode is with Olivia. She's a certified dementia care practitioner and Montessori dementia care professional. She is a very caring and mindful individual, and she's really doing her best work in the world. She's a beautiful person. She has a wealth of knowledge on the topic of brain health for all. We got into more than just the topic of her business, which is very important to her. But we also talk about some major wisdom she's picked up along her family upbringing and other areas in life. I really think anybody can learn a lot from this conversation. There's really so much gold. And if you learn anything from this episode, feel free to share in the comments below. And definitely share this episode with anyone you think will benefit from this conversation. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed day. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So can you describe your title for the guests?
Yes, so I am a certified dementia practitioner and a certified Montessori dementia care professional. So they don't license me to do anything, but I've gone through trainings, certifications. I've been teaching dementia caregivers for almost 11 years now. So I've worked in the space of home care and case management. I've worked in case management in adult foster care, so people that are living at home and their families are taking care of them. I've worked in a memory care unit as a director for the unit. I've worked in activities as a director, so I've kind of run the gamut of everything dementia related. And then I went off on my own and started my own education and support business for caregivers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So, like, what got you started in the direction of this area of expertise?
So, it's kind of funny. It fell into my lap. So, I wasn't really looking for it, and it just kind of stuck. So, when I graduated college, an agency came and they were doing a presentation for seniors of what they do in the community, and I thought, oh, I'll apply for that. I want a job after graduation. And I got the job, and I worked there for 5 years. And while I was working there, I met one of my clients, was named Marie, and she had Alzheimer's, and I fell in love with her. Even after I left the agency, I visited her and her daughter. We got really close, and I just thought, this is what I want to do. I really like this part of the job. And then once I moved on from that job and I worked at the facility doing activities, I met Connie, who really inspired me to start Purple Hydrangea, my business. We really connected really quickly. If anybody believes that, in another lifetime you could have been friends or related or something, she was definitely, like, our hearts just clicked. And when she moved out of the facility into a nursing home, I met this whole part of her family that we never knew about. And it kind of opened my eyes. And I thought, oh my gosh, I spend so much time on the stuff. I spend so much time on the paperwork and the scheduling and the budgeting and the family meetings. And while all that stuff was necessary, we just didn't have the time to really make as deep personal connections as I think we should have. So that really kind of woke me up to thinking, there's a huge gap here. There's a gap in connection, but there's also a gap in education, because I started coming across all these things that just weren't making sense in my experience. What I was taught from different places of my dementia education, and then what I was experiencing in the facility working with these residents, it just wasn't matching up. So I thought, we need better education, professional caregivers and personal caregivers. So when Connie passed during COVID, I was with her just before she passed. My husband and I had driven to go see her. Her daughter-in-law called me and said, you got to come now if you want to see her. And I was outside her sliding glass door, and she passed. And I just thought, I got to keep going with this. Like, this deep of a personal connection, I got to do something with it. So I started Purple Hydrangea, and I hope that other families that I work with feel the depth of that connection. So that's why I do this. That's how it started. Yeah.
Was it difficult, like, 'cause she passed during COVID, right? Was it?
Yeah.
You had to go and, like, with the mask and everything and be separated?
Yeah, visiting was kind of hard. It was pretty early on, so I wasn't even inside the facility. Everyone was kind of doing the visits through the screen doors or through the sliding doors. Her roommate at one point had COVID, and then it escalated really quickly. She was in a nursing home, so it's, those settings at the beginning where it spread really quickly, and they had to have a lot more precautions. So I wasn't even in there with her. Our visits prior to that looked a lot different. I was visiting and taking her to like her Bible study, or taking her to, pray the rosary, or taking her to, the activity room to do something. And it's funny because her daughter-in-law, that was the side of the family I didn't know, and we bumped into each other one day in the room, and I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "Who are you?" And we kind of connected that she said, "Oh yeah, I kept seeing this name Olivia in the visitor book, and I had no idea who you were." And then it like, we kind of jived. I got really close with her daughter-in-law, and her granddaughter, and just, I've been to their house. I've been to, I just formed such a strong connection with them. I wore one of her barrettes as my something borrowed for my wedding.
Oh.
I had wanted her to be one of my flower girls, but I know.
Yeah.
So we just, I don't know, it's wild because I didn't know her before that, but it just felt like I had known her for my whole life. But I only knew her once she had a diagnosis, once she had dementia. So it would have been really cool to have known her before that, but again, it fell into my lap, and I kind of ran with it.
Yeah,
so.
Special connection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so nice. Well, let me see what I have for questions. I know I asked a lot of my friends and people who, like past guests, actually, for questions. So I got some good questions for you, I think. So your business name is Purple Hydrangea.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, where did the name come from, and is there like a significance to that?
Yes. So, purple it's my favorite color, obviously. But it is the color for dementia, specifically for Alzheimer's. So I wanted to do something with that. And then while I was visiting Connie one day, we were talking about gardening. We both love gardening. But I'm like the herbs and the vegetables. I am not a flower person. I'm not.
It's very different.
It is.
Yeah.
I have the house plants all over my house too. I'm just not a flower person, but we were flipping through, it was a magazine that she had gotten, one of those junk mail things, but it was for a seed company. So we were flipping through, and I said, "What's your favorite flower?" And she said, "I love all flowers, but hydrangeas are my favorite." And I liked hydrangeas. I just never was like, "Oh my gosh, I love hydrangeas. They're so gorgeous." But I kind of started to look at them differently. So I took purple hydrangea as where it was going. Yeah.
Wow. So it's like a relevant, like the purple is like actually like relevant to dementia, Alzheimer's, and then like you have that personal connection with the hydrangeas. Oh,
yeah.
Nice. That's so cool.
Yeah. And it's funny because after she passed, I started seeing them everywhere.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really decide, I know it was kind of two different paths. Some people believe, once you start looking for a red car, you see a red car everywhere. Or is it someone trying to show you something? And once she had passed, hydrangeas were everywhere. I was in the grocery store. That was Memorial Day weekend. So when we got back from Memorial Day weekend, I went grocery shopping, and there was this huge display of purple hydrangeas, and I was just sobbing in the grocery store. But yeah, I see them all the time now, and I take a picture every time I see one. Yeah, she's just always there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so sweet. So that's kind of like, that was almost like a really easy name choice for you.
Yeah.
Like I was just telling you before we started recording that I'm still trying to decide on a name for this show.
Yeah.
And I'm having a really hard time. But
yeah.
I wish it was like something easy like that. I mean, I feel like something easy will come to me, and maybe it already has come to me. I'm just not like seeing it. But
yeah, and it's hard because I've seen a lot of, I've listened to a lot of business development and, growing your business and advice and all the, especially, with social media and growing on social media. And there's a lot of advice around using your own name because it's you and you can kind of go whatever you want with it. And I had thought about that at one point, and it just never really made sense to me. I thought, you know what, that might be what's good for business, but it needs to resonate with you. It's your project. It's what's coming from your heart. So when you find it, you'll feel it.
Yeah,
you will.
Yeah.
You will.
Oh, I think so too. All right. So you said that purple is the color for specifically Alzheimer's. Can you describe for people that might not know, because I'm not sure if I know, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Is there a difference?
Yeah, so it's always funny when people say, Alzheimer's and dementia, and it kind of irks me because continues to go back to that point of a lack of education.
Yeah.
And it's not people's fault. It's just you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you think of a fruit salad, right, that's a whole mix of things. It's all these different parts. There's watermelon, there's grapes, there's strawberries, there's melon, whatever. Those are all the different types of dementia, and dementia is the kind of overarching thing. So it's a host of symptoms. It's kind of like saying, you know, I hate comparing it to cancer because it's not the same, but it's easy to wrap your head around. If I say you had cancer, that tells you something's wrong, but you don't know what it is, what it's going to affect, what the progression is going to look like, what your caregivers can expect, what you can expect, what treatments you could do, what trials you could get into. But if I tell you you have skin cancer, that's wildly different than if you had, you know, pancreatic cancer. They're two completely different diseases. Same thing for dementia. Alzheimer's disease is a completely different disease from vascular dementia or Lewy body dementia, or if we get into frontal temporal, those are another whole set of diseases within that. So it's kind of all these little pieces underneath the overarching umbrella of the term dementia. So you're looking at some sort of cognitive decline, cognitive change that comes with these other changes. You might see speech changes, you might see behavioral changes, you might see mood changes, speech changes. And we tend to think memory, but there's a lot of other things, and you might not see the memory decline right away. You might see other things. So caregivers always ask me, you know, well, the doctor told me it's dementia. Is that just okay? And it's kind of, you know, what's good enough for you? Do you want to really push and say, that's not good enough for me, I want to know the specific type? Is the person far enough along and towards the end of their life where you don't want to go through a ton of testing and you're good with just knowing, you know what, I know what this experience is, I know how to handle what I'm experiencing with this person, and I'll just go with that, and I'm okay with not knowing the type. It's really personal preference. But yeah, there's different types of dementia. So when someone says Alzheimer's and dementia, it's like, it doesn't really work because Alzheimer's is a type of dementia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how would they go about test? Is it just like a neurological test that they try to find out which like branch?
Yeah, there's a bunch that goes into it. So you'd have to start at your primary care doctor and just kind of bring up your concerns, because you're going to have to see someone in the neurologic field. So Jerry Psych, or, you know, there's all these different branches of doctors that could test you and all these different things that they'd have to test for. So you'd get blood work, you'd have probably a PET scan, probably an MRI. There's something called a MOCA test. But they want to rule out other things, because if you say, for instance, you have a really low B12, you could present as having dementia. But if we take care of that, all your symptoms go away. So there are things that are reversible that aren't true dementias. And like medication side effects, traumatic brain injuries, there's these other things that could be going on that we could kind of rule out that you have dementia. The MOCA is interesting. A lot of people, I actually just asked my followers on Instagram if people knew what the MOCA was, and I was so surprised because most of the people that follow me are dementia caregivers, and a lot of them said they didn't know what it was. So it's the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and it's a set of questions. They change the questions every year, so every year there's new updates. There's a couple different versions, and you get a score out of 30 at the end of the test, and you can find it online and take it yourself. It's not a true score because it's not a certified person giving you the test, but you can kind of get an idea of what the questions are. And I made my husband take it. When he watches this episode, he'll I don't know if he'll be embarrassed, but he took it and he thought, wow, I didn't get a 30 out of 30. And I said, well, yeah, it's designed to find these little tricks in your brain, basically. So you can kind of package all of these tests together, and the doctor will say if you have dementia or not. And they can tell you potentially how progressed you are. There's 7 stages. you look at Alzheimer's and you kind of progress, stage 1 is kind of early, stage 7 is end of life. But we think of it as stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3. But if you have stage 3, you could look a little different than what I have at stage 3. So it's unfair for caregivers to have to compare those numbers. So I like to coach caregivers. It's a little more important to focus on if you're early stage, moderate, middle stage, or later stage. Because if you get so connected to that stage number, it just adds an extra level of stress. It's just not necessary. It's going to stress you out. You're going to start comparing to other people's experiences. And the only constant with dementia is that there's change and that nothing's ever the same. So it's not worth it to do the comparison.
So you said stage 7 is end of life. So would you consider dementia to be like a fatal disease? It's something that people die from.
It's a loaded question. So you typically, there are a lot of people that say, my mom died from dementia, my mom died from Alzheimer's. Typically you die with Alzheimer's, but something else is really why the person passed. If you're getting to the end of your dementia process, and it's kind of like a bell curve, if you remember that from like elementary school math, right? So as you're growing up, you're gaining skills. So you learn to drink from a cup. And then later on, you learn how to speak a second language. Once you get dementia, you're kind of going to lose those skills in the opposite order. So you'll kind of lose that second language. At some point, you'll lose the skill drinking from a cup. So you need more care as you progress. You'll need help bathing, need help eating, need help turning in bed, need help toileting. You'll need a lot more hands-on care, which is why a lot of people go to a care facility, because the care at home, sometimes it's not possible. So if we look at that, end of life, you may pass from your body shutting down from not having the nutrition, if you're not able to eat, if you're not able to swallow, if you have a fall. If you break a hip, you have a fall, you go to the hospital, you're laying flat. If you get pneumonia, so you may have dementia when you pass, but you're likely passing from some sort of body function shutting down, or an illness, an acute illness, pneumonia, something else is going on, or you're reaching the end of your life. A lot of people live until they're, in their late 90s with dementia. Some people are unfortunately really early, in their 60s or 70s. Wow. You can be pretty early. So it's typically not you died because of the disease, you died because of something that was coming with it.
Okay. Yeah. So that was going to be actually my other question. You kind of hinted at it. Is dementia something that only affects elderly people, or is it possibly affecting people younger now?
Yeah. It's kind of scary, and a gap in education, right? So these changes that are happening in your brain are happening decades before you're showing symptoms. Wow. So if you're showing symptoms in your 50s or 60s, you probably started having some brain issues in your 30s or 40s. So I am constantly preaching to people about brain health, because you can prevent this. You can. If we look at the new research coming out around Alzheimer's disease, it's preventable, it's reversible. A lot of the stuff is lifestyle factors. We're constantly damaging our brains with what we constantly do to our brains and our bodies. You can get dementia early. So if you're young, if you're under the age of 65, you're looking at what's called early onset. Not early stage, but early onset. You're under the age of 65. If you're older, then it's later stage. There's a genetic component to it. Like, I got genetic testing. I have one copy of the gene that flags for Alzheimer's. So I really dove deep into how can I prevent this. I have a family history. I have the gene. What can I do to prevent this? There's a really good research. I wish I had the titles of their studies off the top of my head, but Dr. Dale Bredesen came out with a study. And then Heather Sandison, she just came out with a study in 2023, and they are phenomenal. They showed an increase in MoCA scores. So that score, that out of 30 that you're getting, if you're not doing anything for treatment, or if you're taking a medication, those don't even just stop your number where they are. They slow your progression. So you're still going from a 30 to a 25 to a 20, just maybe slower, but you get all these side effects from your medications. Then let's give you another medication to fix that side effect, and then it just kind of turns into this mess. If you don't do anything, same thing, you're still progressing lower in your MoCA score. The protocol that they did their research around actually increases your MoCA score. So you're reversing Alzheimer's, which is wild, because we always thought, it's terminal. There's nothing you can do. I hate that. So many caregivers come to me and say, the doctor said there's nothing you can do. Just go home and die, basically.
Wow.
That's horrible.
That's really depressing.
It's so sad, and that's so defeating to hear, well, there's nothing you can do. That's not true. It's not true. So I highly recommend to caregivers to read the research. There is a protocol. Yeah, I'll send those to you. Okay. And there's a protocol. You can do it on your own. You don't have to. I mean, you could go through their program and get a coach and a doctor that's certified, but you can do it on your own. I try. I'm not totally strict about it, but look at your exercise, look at your nutrition, look at your sleep, your stress, the supplements you're taking. Are you exposed to toxins? Like, all of these things, if we look at how you're, if I just kicked you in the shin right now, that would hurt. If I continuously kicked you in the shin, it would just keep hurting, right? But if I stopped, the pain would stop. Same thing. If we stop triggering, if we stop doing all these things that are destroying our brain, it's fine. Like, your brain you'll come out of it. You can reverse it. But we have to stop triggering the inflammatory response is basically what we're doing.
Wow. So I think inflammation is like one of the worst things you could have going on in your body, right? So these are what you're mentioning are things that like anyone can do to help prevent the possible onset. Yeah, and even if we look at it really, it's also just in general a good idea to look at those factors. He calls them the Bredesen Seven. So if you look at the 7 factors, if you're exposed to mold, you're not sleeping, you have sleep apnea and you're not wearing a CPAP, you're not exercising, you're sedentary all day, you're eating a bunch of fried food, and you have no social interactions with anyone, you're going to probably develop some sort of disease at some point. It might not be Alzheimer's, but some sort of disease. Something's going to happen. So even if you're not trying to actively prevent cognitive decline, these factors are going to help you in any other form of disease prevention and just living a healthy life in general. You can just do it on your own. You don't have to, go 100%, run with it. Clients that I have that are caring for someone with Alzheimer's, I always mention it as, if this is something you're interested in, these are the things we can look at. We can connect you with someone who's certified in this program. But I'm telling you, if you're just sitting there all day, I see this all the time. Oh, what does your mom do? Well, she sits in her chair and she watches her show and she lives alone. No one comes around. She eats the Meals on Wheels and she watches church on Sunday. It's like, that's sad. That's sad. Like, there's no spark. There's no... Why would the brain want to continue living like that? That's really sad. But if you clean it up a little, you can heal your brain. And just like stimulation and socializing. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I mean, even if you have a companion come over to your house from your local senior center, if you go to a day program once a week, there's a program one of my caregivers was using, and of course now I'm not going to remember the name of it. It's Lots of Helping Hands. You can go online and build like a calendar setup of, a meal train kind of thing, or say you wanted somebody, if, say you're living with Alzheimer's and I'm your caregiver and I say, Tuesdays I have to go into the office. So on Tuesdays I need to set up
whatever care. I could have somebody set up transportation for you and bring you to your day program. I could, set up a neighbor to come over and have lunch with you. I could set up a private person to come pick you up and go to TJ Maxx for the day. Like, you can set up care. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but little connections here and there are so healing for the brain.
That could be huge, like a huge change just from,
Yeah, and it could be little spurts of time. It could be little. It doesn't have to be anything major.
All right, kind of easy question. Who can be a dementia caregiver?
Anybody. Anybody. I mean, obviously a 7-year-old's not going to be a dementia caregiver, but anybody can be part of the care team. Like we were just talking about the social interactions, intergenerational stuff is huge. When I worked in facilities, I would try to have Girl Scouts come over and do things. We would go to a preschool. We went to a Montessori school. Involving them with kids, especially if we look at their past life roles, like if we look before dementia, this is kind of the Montessori piece of things. If we look before their diagnosis, something that was really important to them was kids. If they were a stay-at-home mom and they had 7 kids, or if they were, if they worked in a school, they were a teacher, whatever, that's going to be important. So bring that into now. Kids can be really healing. Babies can be really healing. A lot of people get the lifelike dolls, and that can be huge. But as far as who can be a caregiver, anybody can be a caregiver. The question is, do you want to be a caregiver? And it's okay if you don't want to be a caregiver. But you have to be able to say, I can't do this. I need help. I need other people, or I need agencies, or they go to a facility, which is, people have so much guilt around moving someone to a facility, and that's fine. It's fine. It is totally fine, because you're making the decision and saying, I can't do this. I need somebody else to do it. That is 100% valid of a choice. And we can't feel guilty about that. I would feel more guilty about, well, let me try to piecemeal something together at home. I can't do it. I'm overstressed. We start fighting. Somebody falls. Something bad happens. It's okay if you don't want to be a caregiver. But you just have to really do some self-reflection and think, A, can I do this? And B, do I want to do this?
Yeah, I know that, like, sometimes, like, if it's your family member and you've got so much other stuff going on and it's just, you feel overwhelmed, like, people might want to know, like, if they're in that position, like, what are all their options? Like, you can send your loved one to a facility, or, like, are there options, like, in between that?
Yeah, and you make a good point, actually, that you said your loved one.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So not everybody has a loving relationship with the person in their life that has dementia, right? And in that case, you probably don't want to be the caregiver. Even if they are a loved one to you, you still don't have to be the caregiver. But I have tried to kind of move myself away from the term loved one, because it's not always a loved one, right? It could be just a person in your life. But you're right, there's that feeling of obligation, right?
Yeah.
It's my family, it's my aunt, it's my grandmother. I have to. You don't. You really don't. And there are options. If you want to move the person to a facility, that's an option. There's independent living, assisted living, and memory care. You can have the person move into your space. You could move into their space. You could stay living separate, and if they're, early in the disease and they don't need 24-hour care, you could set up a schedule. You could set up a private pay person to come in. You could look through your local aging services and see if they subsidize care. You could look through a Medicaid program to see if they have specific programs for your area. Like I was talking about the adult foster care, that's a program in There's a program in Massachusetts where if people have Mass Health, so the Massachusetts version of Medicaid, somebody who's living if you're living at the same residence, the Mass Health program can give a stipend to that caregiver to do your care. So there's a lot of different programs. You just have to kind of know where to look, and that's why it's really helpful to work with someone that knows those resources, especially because they differ by state. And asking the right questions and knowing the right terminology to use when you're applying for things, knowing what you could qualify for, and again, it's okay to accept help. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of perception issues around having someone come into their house or applying for a program, but that's why they're there. They're there to help you. So there's no shame in it. It's again, it's that inside thought of it's okay to accept this help. It's okay to say I need it. And you might not need 24-hour care. You might just need a couple hours here and there. If your person is independent and safe, that's the question. I always get that question. When can they not live alone? When do I have to move them to a facility? When it's not safe. I had a family who I met with them, and it was siblings, and mom was living in her own home. Siblings were all living their own adult life, and the smoke alarm went off. And she said, "Man, what is that annoying sound?"
Oh.
I said, "Mom can't live alone anymore." If that's the reaction, so I tell caregivers, do a fire drill. Set off the smoke detector in your house and see what they do. Do they try to call 911? Do they think it's just an annoying sound? Do they hear it? Does it work? First of all, step one, does it work? Have you tested it ever? But if they don't know what to do, that they shouldn't be living alone. It's a safety thing. If you want to live together, that's awesome. If you don't want to live together, that's awesome. But are they safe? If there's a fire in the house, what are they going to do? You know, if there's a fire when they're in bed, can they get out of the bed on their own and leave the house? Do they know to leave the house? Do they know to call 911? If they don't know what to do in a fire drill, they shouldn't be home alone. Just like a kid. I hate to compare kids to dementia because it's not the same. But if you had a 5-year-old at home, that's not safe to be alone, right? No, it's a question of safety.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I hear people say sometimes that, aging people that I know in my life, just the moment I can't drive anymore, that's when just kill me now or something like that.
It's sad.
Hard things.
Yeah.
It's hard to lose your independence in a way, yeah. And you have no control.
Yes, you have no control. And it's loss of independence, but think of all the other loss, right? If you're aging and you have dementia, you're early stage, so you're kind of aware something's not quite right. You're still pretty independent. Now I tell you can't drive. I want to take your license away, take your keys away. So now you can't drive. That's a loss of independence. I'm going to set somebody up to do your grocery shopping because you can't drive. So now you've lost that. I'm going to set up Meals on Wheels because I'm worried that you're not eating. So I want to make sure you have a meal delivered to you because I'm working all day, so I can't check on you. So you've now lost the ability to cook. You might start a fire. I don't know if you're going to start a fire, so I'm going to take the knobs off your stove. Now we've lost that. You're in your late 80s, so your parents are gone. Your siblings might be gone. Your friends maybe have passed. You also have retired, so you're not working anymore, and you're home alone all day. Wow. There is so much loss. We don't look at the whole thing. There's so much. It's sad. It's so. Can we keep them independent? We can, but where's the balance? This is, again, if we go back to the Montessori base of my teaching, how can I keep you as independent as I can at home and safe, but supporting you as much as I can? I want to do the least amount of work, the least amount of help that you need possible. If you haven't started a fire, you're early stage, I'm not concerned about your safety, you can still cook. If I've seen you cook and everything's fine, you can still use the stove. I'm not saying everybody with dementia can't use a stove anymore. But if I'm going to take away all those things from you, then I'm taking away your skill. And now you're not going to be able to do it because I've completely taken it over. Now you're going to lose that skill because I took it away from you. Instead of supporting you in that skill with a little bit of help here and there and letting you do it. Sometimes we overmeet the need. And then the progression goes so much faster.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Because we want to fix
true,
it,
yeah,
right? We want to fix it. We want to
there
help.
is like a delicate balance you really have to keep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because if you say that you are having trouble dressing yourself in your 80s, say you have some shoulder pain, maybe at one point you had a fall, so you have some back pain, and it's really hard for you to dress yourself. If I'm the caregiver and I got to get ready for work, I got to be out of here by whatever time. You got to get ready quick. I'm now rushing you. I'm probably going to take over the task of dressing you. You're going to start to get agitated because you don't really need help. You have some pain, but maybe it just takes you a little bit more time. Maybe I roll up the sleeve and just put it at your wrist and then you can put it on. Or maybe I help with your top, but you can still do your bottoms. I just had a family that I was working with that we started setting up a dressing chair. Because standing, she was at risk for falling. But if she's sitting, she can still dress herself, but we've made it safe. So if we overmeet the need, we're going to fly through progression a lot faster.
Yeah.
And we're putting more stress on ourselves for no reason, right? I don't have to get you dressed before work. I'm putting that on myself. I'm creating my own stress.
Yeah. Wow. So, let me ask you a question. It just came to me. I don't know if it's like right on with that, but when you do like teaching events, when you like have a class, what are like the most important things you want to get across in that class to those people? What do you want them to take away from this training? Like, even if you just have them for like, I don't know, how long do you do a training for? Like an hour, 2 hours?
Yeah, so it's funny because I tend to, I got to feel out the group. I have to feel out kind of what the overarching message is that they need. The two courses that I teach that are kind of, I don't know if I would say they're my specialty. They're my two favorite topics to teach, and I am really comfortable with them because I have a lot of experience and I have a lot of kind of tips and tricks on how to handle them. So behaviors or symptoms of the disease, right? It's not a behavior. You can't help it if you have skin cancer and now you have a spot on you. Why am I going to yell at you about that? You can't help it. They can't help it. It's a symptom of their disease. So, but we call them behaviors. So that topic, and then activities. So if I'm teaching those two things, those I both root in my Montessori background. And the overarching thing that I'm always telling caregivers is, it's okay. Let it go. They always ask me, well, what if we have this activity planned and then this happens? Or what if I have this and then? It's okay. If they're safe, it's okay. Just let it go. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And it's so hard because, and I feel like such a hypocrite when I teach that, because I am such a type A, organized, kind of routined person. But somehow when I'm dealing with dementia, that is a lot easier for me to say, they can't help it. It doesn't matter. Who cares? If the sky is purple today, whatever, the sky is purple. If they think today's Friday and it's Tuesday, who cares? It has no impact on their safety and their well-being. Who cares? But it's the caregiver that just, it's, no, it's Friday. It's not Tuesday. It's Friday. Who cares? Right?
Yeah. Actually, that brought up another thought. So, like, when, like, people my age, so, like, your parents are aging, things are changing. When people, like, when parents start to, like, just have little things here and there that, and like, you want to correct them or something. Yeah. So, so it's just
You just saw me
slope,
twitch
right?
a little bit.
Yeah. But that's one of the things, right? Just let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
It used to be taught, it's called reality orientation. It used to be taught, if you say that, there's a lemon in my cup, okay? I have a lime in my cup. But if you say, that's a lemon, it used to be taught that we would say, no, that's a lime. Right. See, this is green. A lemon is yellow. But this is green. So what is this? Come on. I mean, really? Who cares, right? Yeah. Reality orientation used to be taught. It used to be that whatever they were saying, we're going to correct. We're going to drag you into my reality. It doesn't work. It just exacerbates the symptoms. So we're moving away from that. There's something called therapeutic non-truths, which basically is a fiblet, a white lie. Okay. So it wouldn't really work with the lemon and the lime because I can't, maybe that was a bad example, but, if you say that's a lemon, I can just say, yeah, that's a lemon. It tastes pretty good. Like, who cares, right? Yeah. But if it's something like, they don't want to go to the doctor's appointment or they don't want to go to the dentist, okay? I don't need to go to the dentist. If you're now saying, well, you need to go to the dentist because you haven't had a cleaning in 6 months and you get a cleaning every 6 months and now you're due for a cleaning. Reality orientation. You're just going to spiral them and then they're going to get agitated. You're going to get angry. You're going to yell at them. They're going to mirror what you're doing. Everything's going to go crazy. You're going to drag them in the car. It doesn't work. Don't do it. Yeah. But if you use a little white lie, and it's hard with parents because a lot of adult children have a really hard time lying to their parents. It's justifying, I'm lying to my parent, which has always been, you don't lie, right? Yeah. But think about the intention behind it. The intention is not to deceive them. The intention is to soothe and to provide the care that they need. So you don't want to go to the dentist, and I just say, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I have a dentist appointment. I gotta go. Let's go together. We'll get lunch after. A lot easier to get in the car because you've kind of taken on the bad guy. You've taken on the oops, it was my fault. And you kind of level with them. If you're ripping them into our reality, you're now up here, you're above them. You're not any better than them. Yeah. So, oops. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. And then it's a lot easier to kind of level with somebody. And then they get in the car, you get to the dentist, and it goes a lot smoother. We both have appointments. Little white lies, and people really struggle with that. But what's the intention? You're not lying to harm, you're not lying to deceive. And if it's something that really needs to get done right now, then I would say use it. But if we're battling each other over what time to brush your teeth or what time to take a shower, who cares? You don't want to take a shower in the morning, you want to take a shower at night, who cares? Why are you going to argue over that? Yeah. Let it go.
I love that.
It's easier said than done. Yeah. It is. Because we work on our schedule and we want to yank them into our schedule. That doesn't work anymore. Their brain is changing. We need to now change our approach to meet that.
I love the idea of just letting it go because that kind of comes up a lot with spiritual practice too. You just have to let go of control. You're not trying to control everything in your life anymore. You kind of just go with the flow. Yeah. And let things be what they be.
Right. So. And if they're safe, the rest of it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Yeah. And if you're going with the flow, you're just letting things happen, you're going to meet a lot less resistance. If you're just, think about a literal flow. Like if you're flowing down some water, really smooth, really easy, not a problem. If you're trying to walk against the current, it's going to be really hard. Just but it's so much easier said than done when you're in the situation, you have someone in front of you living with dementia and you're trying to get them to do something that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, really the only things are if they're keeping themselves clean, you know, for safety, preventing UTIs, that kind of thing. They've eaten and they're not falling. You know, if you're looking at their basic human needs as being safe, the rest of it is fine. The rest of it can just let it go.
It's funny because that's exactly what Abraham talks about, like not having resistance, going with the flow, and yeah, that's like
you make a lot less trouble for yourself.
Yeah,
it's hard, and it takes practice. It does take
Definitely.
practice, and a lot of caregivers that I've never done that. I've never lied to my mom, or I've never just. I've heard that it's good to keep them on a routine, on a schedule. Well, yeah, it's good to keep a routine and schedule so they know what to expect, but if they don't want to do something, or they do want to do something else, just go with that.
Yeah, I think even just to, like, let go of control as a life focus it can be a huge adjustment to get used to. You really have to, like, retrain your brain to just, like...
Yeah, it takes practice.
I don't need to control everything. Just let go.
Especially if you are someone that has grown up with a lot of structure and rules and knowing, this is this way, this, or really organized type A people that like things to be a certain way. It's hard to let go of that because it's been your pattern for so long that's really deeply rooted in you, really ingrained, and now to try and change the path of that, it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of self-awareness, and it takes admitting that sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Some self-growth there that just, sometimes you were doing it the wrong way, and you only know what you know. But if you don't get yourself educated, or if you only get your education from one place, you only know what you know. There's no fault in that. It's just putting in the work to learn something new, putting in the work to learning what's going to work for your person, putting in the work in yourself to really practicing letting it go and just going with it. It takes time. It's possible, but it takes time.
Yeah, I've come to believe that I feel like I see Earth as a school, and we all come here to learn. So it's like, this life is a learning experience. It's not just one learning experience. It's like, when you're maybe like when you are having to deal with, or, when your loved one is going through, like, onset of dementia, that's a lesson for them. It's going to be a huge lesson for you. Like, it's something that you're going to learn how to deal with and go through.
Yeah, I remember listening to an interview with Sean Korn. She's a world-renowned vinyasa yoga teacher. She does a lot of humanitarian work, and she was talking about angels crossing your path and the lessons that they teach you. And even if you just translate that into, dementia care, right? This person is now, they've always been in your life maybe, but this situation has now crossed your path. What is the lesson in it for you?
Yeah.
What are they there to teach you? Maybe that is there to teach you that you don't need to be so rigid and controlled and strict in your routines and dare I say, uptight, or, what is the lesson that's there for you? Why has this crossed your path? This is now here for you to potentially learn something. But you have to be open to that. You have to be open to thinking, this happened to me for a reason. But you can't take that as you can't be the victim. You can't say, oh, this happened to me, poor me. You have to say, what is the lesson that's here for me? What's the benefit in this? Maybe the lesson is to relax a little bit. Maybe that relaxation helps prevent your cognitive decline. Maybe this person is there to help you in your future. But you really have to kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the whole picture, maybe separate you from yourself a little bit and have some awareness. What's the lesson? Why did this happen? This happened for something. Maybe I don't see it right now. Maybe I see it later. I didn't see why Connie had crossed my path. I didn't see, I could have worked at any facility, anywhere in activities. She could have gone to any facility. She could have gone straight to the nursing home. But for some reason, she and I were at that facility at the same time. And I crossed paths with her other family at the nursing home at the same time for a reason. There was a reason that happened. There was a reason she crossed my path. It took me however many years of working, at that point, 9 years of working in dementia to decide I need to do something on my own and I need to be able to help caregivers. All those other people, the hundreds of clients that had crossed my path, didn't bring me here, but she brought me here. She crossed my path for some reason. So sometimes you don't see it when you're in it, but after the fact, it's kind of a light bulb that goes on, because after she died, I thought, oh, I gotta do something with this. But that didn't happen with Marie when I was working at the first place. It didn't happen with the hundreds of other people. It only happened with Connie. So when that experience crosses your path, you might not see the lesson. You might not even see down the road that there was a lesson, but there's probably some sort of golden nugget in there for you somewhere. Even if it was just learning a little bit of patience.
Yeah. And like you said, like when you start coming into that victim role, that's when you lose all your power.
Yeah.
And that's when you lose the ability to see what is the lesson in this.
Right. Yeah. And if you're kind of replaying that of this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, you're kind of stuck on the hamster wheel of negativity. And I've recently done a lot of self-reflection in my own life of removing the negativity completely. You have to get out of it, but you have to see it first. You have to see, what are these things that are telling me that poor me, or if someone else is being negative to you, how do you cut that cord? How you have to put in some effort and get yourself out of that cycle, because then you're not going to see the lesson. You're kind of just drowning in the negativity and the victim mentality. And it's okay to be there for a little bit. I mean, I get it. If,
sometimes it's all that's available.
Yeah, sometimes that's the only thing you feel. And you feel like, wow, I have my whole adult life. I have my whole bubble. And now I have this person that needs me to take care of them, and I have to carve time out of what I love to do to take care of them. And sometimes, that sucks. That sucks. And you can feel really crappy about that. And you can be in that dark hole. That is absolutely valid. I am not saying you can't feel that. But when you get out of that, then it's a breath of fresh air. You can be there as long as you need to be there before you, kind of not wake up, but get a breath out of it once you have some separation from it. But that means you have to be taking care of yourself. You can't just be in that cycle. You have to do something for yourself. You have to help yourself.
Yeah. You need to change perspective somehow. Yeah.
And sometimes that takes somebody else. I tell a lot of my caregivers, have you thought about therapy? Have you thought about talking to somebody else? And I am more than glad to spend my entire session with caregivers talking about just their emotional needs. That is absolutely fine. I am by no means a therapist. I am not saying that I'm a therapist, but sometimes you just need to vent it out. And sometimes you just need to listen. You need somebody to listen. My sisters and I have this setup where we talk to each other if we say, Do you need opinions? Do you need response? Do you need help? Or do you just want to vent it out and listen and not want a response from us, and you just need to get it out and you just want us to listen? Sometimes it's just the awareness of that. You know, do you want somebody to respond to you? Do you want help? Do you want solutions? Or do you want just to get it out and then you'll feel that release? But I tell most of my caregiver clients, like, think about therapy. Think about something for yourself. And if you're not into therapy, think of what would be therapy for you. Is that going on a walk outside every day? Is that lunch with a friend once a week, that you have something dedicated that's just for you, that you can let your brain go, let your mind go?
Oh yeah, that practice with your sister sounds really constructive and really helpful.
It took us a while to get there, but once we got there, because, you know, if you tell me something and then I start trying to problem solve for you, it could make it worse for you, because you're just thinking, I don't want a solution. I just want to tell you about it. I just want to share.
And then you might feel like they're reacting the wrong way, so then you get upset, and then there's a whole resistance.
And then you're upset about something that you were never upset about in the first place. Now you're upset about this reaction instead of whatever your original problem was. Yeah, you can just say, I just need to vent it. I don't need a response. I just need to get it out. And that's some empathy. That's a practice in empathy, right? A lot of us experience the sympathy. We feel bad. You're, not that you're less than me, but you're, you know, I'm kind of looking down on you. There's a really good YouTube clip of Brene Brown talking about empathy versus sympathy, and she talks about, you know, the video is of this, I think it's a bear or a fox, it's some sort of animal that's like down in a hole, and sympathy is just looking down into the hole and going, oh, are you okay down there? But the empathy is, you know, putting the ladder down there and getting down into the hole with the other, whoever the creature was that was down there. Are you leveling with the person, or are you creating this hierarchy kind of? And if you're trying to problem solve and they're not looking for a response, you're kind of creating that separation. Again, if you're not on the same level, it's not empathy, it's not connection. Not good.
Well, that's a great idea to just like preface your, I mean, maybe you're not always in the mind space to be able to do that, but if we could communicate clearly like that and like be like, you know, I just want to vent, like.
And sometimes it's on the other person, right? Like, we could take that lesson into when other people are venting to us and say, do you just want to vent it out, or do you want a response from me? Sometimes we're on the receiving end and we can practice that. But again, it takes practice to remember and not just, I want to fix it.
Right.
Especially, you know, if you're in any kind of caregiver role. Technically, everybody's a caregiver, right? You're caring for yourself. You're caring for whoever. Practice that with your kids. Practice that with your parents. Practice that with your friends. Practice that with your partner. Do you just want to vent it to me, or do you want a response? Do you want some help? It's huge for communication.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to try to be more mindful of that.
Yeah.
So cool.
And that's hard, right? Everybody hears mindful, or you're like, oh, I can't be mindful. You just have to, like, slow down the brain a little
people
bit.
say that,
You gotta, like, slow down the thoughts. Put more space between the input and the output.
Yeah.
Takes practice.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I wanted to ask just about your business. So, like, what are the... Okay, so a couple questions in one, I guess. So, what are, like, all of the services you offer? I know you do trainings, classes, and it kind of sounded like maybe you do, like, individual meetings, too. And then I also want to know, like, how was it for you, like, when you decided to start up this business, you decided to start it, but, like, how was it for you to get into it and get it started? Like, how is starting a business? How was that for you?
So, okay, so the service, what I offer first, what my services. So, I do group classes. Some are online, some are in person. I have worked with clients all over the country for my one-on-one sessions. For my online classes, I've had people all over the world. It's really interesting because I always like to ask, chat in where you're from. And I've had Sweden, I've had Germany, I've had South Africa, I've had Australia. It's really cool. I mean, I feel bad for whatever time of day they're coming to my webinars, but they're signing on. So I do online classes, I do in-person classes. I do offer some free classes. Certain topics I do is like a paid workshop, and some of them I offer as free community education. I do one-on-one sessions with caregivers, so I can do those in person or I can do those online. And really, we can look at the individual needs, because if you're struggling with, personal care, hands-on care for your person, and then, Joe Schmo is struggling with trying to get them social, and then another person is struggling with, I'm trying to get a diagnosis from my doctor, those are all going to look completely different. If you all come to one class with me, I can't help that whole problem. Your individual problem is yours. So I do one-on-one sessions, and then I do an online women's support group. I've been doing, that group has been together for 4 years. We started right at the beginning of COVID.
Wow, nice.
So we've been an online group for quite a while. I do have a wait list, so that's not open right now.
Wow.
So yeah, which is, it's nice that there's a wait list, because that means that the people are consistently coming. So that's really good. And I just partnered with a community resource online that allows for financial assistance for my one-on-one sessions. So if people, I would hate for somebody to not get the education that they need because they can't afford it. So there's a link I can give you to put in the notes, that if people want to work with me one-on-one but they just can't afford it, or they need to break it up into payments or whatever, then that's an option for people.
That's awesome.
So those are the services that I offer. And I also post free education and support every day on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll get you get free education and support every single day. I post something. So there's always something there. If you're like, I don't want to pay for it yet, just kind of dip my toes in the water. You can kind of get a sense for what I teach, how I teach, what my beliefs are in dementia education. Starting the business. So I knew I wanted to do something. I was kind of hesitant, not really sure what I wanted it to look like, what I wanted to offer, how I wanted to do it. And my original plan, because it was during COVID, was to do mostly online classes. And it's really kind of shifted away from that to being more in-person classes through different town agencies, and a lot more one-on-one sessions, which I'm really glad about, because that's really where the value comes in. So my husband had actually started his business, and that really kind of gave me the kick in the pants. I was like, okay, if he started his, I really need to do mine. But I really didn't know where to start, because I didn't have any idea of what I had to set up, and I started looking into the legalities of everything, and making sure my insurances were set up, and talking to my insurance agent and figuring out what I needed to protect myself, because if I educated you on something and then you made a decision based on my education and something happened, I had to protect myself. So the only constant with dementia is that everything's different, everything changes. So everything that I offer is education, but ultimately the client is the one making the decision. I can't decide anything. I can present you with every option, every resource. I can help support you as much as I can, but ultimately the client is making the decision for the person. So all that to say, setting up my insurances to make sure I was protected, setting up the business name to make sure I was registered, setting up all the online pieces, switching over my Instagram from my old account. It was a lot of, behind the scenes online kind of stuff. And now it's really evolved into branding and growing and moving away from, a link tree and establishing an actual legitimate website, which is a huge mind jump for me to think, oh my gosh, this is, it's been 2 years, it's a legitimate business, but wrapping my brain around owning a .com is just, I'm hitting a mental barrier on that, I'm probably just procrastinating it for no reason, but a lot of the behind the scenes stuff to start it, and then just kind of learning as I go. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's you learn your mistakes, you trip over things, you realize, oh, I didn't charge enough for that, I lost a ton of money, or my business expenses are astronomical, I'm gonna lose money this year, and it's filing business taxes. Oh my god, it's learn as you go. It's just, it'll work out, but again, it's a lot of that self-reflection of just let it go, just go with the flow.
Yeah.
It's a practice of learning. Again, why did this idea even pop into my head? I could always work for other companies forever and just use my dementia education with all those people, but Connie crossed my path. I knew I needed to start this business. There was a learning lesson in there somewhere, and everything as I go is every client that I work with is a new learning lesson for me of what can I do better? How can I use this experience to coach another family? Or how can I incorporate this new training that I did into the trainings that I do? How can I evolve what my teaching is and keeping up on the research? It's a you're submerged in it. If anyone listening is a business owner, you're in it all the time. Yeah. Which is great, but as long as you love it, you have to love it. You really have to love it.
So, sounds like you're, doing pretty good so far.
Yep. It's a labor of love, but it's, I love it. I love it. I do love it. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. At one point, I was, in COVID, I'm gluten-free, and I was doing gluten-free baked goods, like a little, not really a bakery per se, but I got kind of spooked towards the end of that, something that had happened with, some online Facebook drama, and so I stopped doing that, but I think I knew I wanted to do something, go off on my own and do a business. So when this happened, when Connie happened, really, that was kind of the switch for me. And you have to put a lot of work into it. It's, but once you find, you might dabble in things here and there, but once you find what really kind of lights your fire, then it doesn't really feel like work.
So, do you see like a potential for expansion and growth in what you're doing, and what would be like the next step in that?
Yeah, I would love to grow. I mean, it is slow growing because a lot of what I do revolves around other people needing to admit that they need help. And that's hard. I'm not providing a product. I'm not providing, I make cups or I make coasters, and it's a need that I'm meeting that doesn't require any inner work from you. I'm offering something that requires somebody else to say, I need her to help me. So, and the clientele that I work with, typically there's an end point, right? I'm working with typically older people, and my end point of work is death. So I don't have a potential for you to keep coming back and buying the cup. There's an end point there. So yes, expansion would be great. I would love to. I would not imagine that I would ever be a brick and mortar, office business. I would love to expand, meeting with as many clients as I can, because I can only but it's about spreading past. It's about, there's a few organizations that are really huge. Like, I'm sure everybody listening has probably heard of the Alzheimer's Association, right? Mm-hmm. It's a huge organization. Do I want to do what they're doing? Absolutely not. But would I like to grow to having the reach that they have? Absolutely yes. Mm-hmm. So it's about how many caregivers can I reach? And a lot of what I rely on is word of mouth, because if you're in dementia caregiving, say you're in another support group, or you're bringing your person to a day program, or you have a companion coming into the house, you're probably talking about your experience to the other caregivers that are in your life. Mm-hmm. And that can help share, oh, I got help from Olivia, she did blah, blah, blah for me, or I went to this class and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's how I found you, right? So a lot of it's word of mouth. I would love for that to spread like wildfire. A lot of people find me online. I would love to get, that to get huge, because social media is how many people have you met online, or people that, dating have met online? It's wild, the connections that can be made there. So growing the business would absolutely be a goal. I would love to, be teaching classes where I'm, filling an auditorium. That would be amazing to be able to teach to a large group, because the more people I talk to, the more I know people are getting current education, they're getting support, and they're getting more than what they already have. Mm-hmm. And you can only get so much from Google. You can Google your experience and it's going to give you the generic answer, but it's not going to ask you any questions. It's not going to get to know your person and what's important to your person. You need that personal connection. Again, comes full circle all the way back to connection all the time, right?
So if you were to expand, like, how would you see what you do to change? Like, would you be doing more like online, maybe like group things, or like what would change for you?
I think what would change would be, I think, online is always a great way to expand, because you can reach people you've never reached. Like, I don't know anybody in Sweden, but somehow they found me, and it was probably because of social media. But I don't think that online is going to be sustainable, to be honest. I think we're burnt out from COVID. I think we are so zoomed out. I know that, I'm going to be honest, I've signed up for some webinars, I've signed up for some dementia trainings that have been online, and I just am like, I'll watch the recording later. Do I watch the recording? Sometimes. But do I always? No. Especially if it's something free. People don't feel like they have an investment in it if it's free. How many times have you signed up for an email list or something, or a download, and then you don't actually follow through on anything? Or these free challenges online. How often are you actually really dedicating yourself to it? Maybe 50% of the time. But if you have A, paid for something, B, it's in person, you have some sort of investment. And it's connection. You can't always connect with someone through a screen. You can really connect with somebody in person. I can really interact with the students that I have, with the clients, the caregivers that are coming in. I can be a lot more hands-on with them. If I'm teaching a behaviors class, I am not standing up at the front of the room. I'm walking all around. Everybody in that room is going to be an example at some point. They don't know it, but the activities class, the activities class that I teach, I bring activities with me, and we, people are examples again of, I'm setting you up with something, and then I'm interacting with you as if I was a caregiver, and you're experiencing what that person would feel like. So I would imagine that I would like to see the growth coming from large in-person classes. But again, it always comes back to people need to admit that they need help. People need to be okay with saying, yeah, I need to learn more, or I need to learn something different, because what I've Googled is not working. I mean, I would love to see one-on-one clients all day long, but does that reach the potential of the people that I could be reaching? No, because, you know, I could reach 30 people at a time, or I could reach one at a time. Mm-hmm. Both of those are fantastic. And like I said, the one-on-one really gives you what you need. But if I have a large audience, if I have a large group of people in front of me, and they each tell one person about the experience they had, that is exponential growth that I can't facilitate. They can facilitate that. Word of mouth is huge in caregivers. Think about how many people, I mean, if I asked you right now, what's your favorite restaurant? Tell me about a place that you've eaten recently that you really liked. That recommendation is going to be so much more valuable to me than if I just Google restaurants near me that people loved. Yeah. That's not, that doesn't put any heart into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. I want to kind of take it in a different direction because I wrote down this question I really wanted to ask. God, I have so many questions for you. I wrote so many questions. It's crazy. Yeah. So I was like kind of reflecting on like our society and like how the elderly are, like what their place in our society is today. And I wrote, like, you would never, like back in ancient society, or this would never happen back in ancient societies, like elders would be highly respected and cherished for their experience and wisdom. I feel like they kind of get left out in the cold a lot of the times these days. I think it's really tragic how our aging society is dealt with in this era of humanity. What can we do to change that? Like as a society.
Oh, man. Yeah, they are left out, I think. I think there's a lot of change around culturally what families look like, what aging looks like. You know, there's cultures that the aging grandparent, like you said, highly respected, they're living in the home and the children are expected to take care of the aging parent. The adult children, that's the expectation. Whether that's culturally or whether that's just an individual family culture. You know, like my parents live out of state. They don't live here. My grandparents live in another state. There's not, as far as I know, there's not an expectation that one generation would move into the other's house. There's not an expectation that I move to my parents' home out of state and care for them, or they move into. That's not a culturally expected thing, at least in my family. And unless my parents and grandparents watch this and tell me I'm wrong. But some families, that's the norm, is that you stay together. I think every question that you're asking me, we're always come back to this connection, right?
Yeah.
That we've lost connection. And I think that probably has to do a lot with everything's online now. We've created disconnect. You know, we have the ability to travel really easily. We have cars, we have planes, we have trains. You can get somewhere pretty quickly. Everything is instant and at our fingertips. There's no slowness. So if I could hop on a plane and be at my parents' in a few hours, you know, that's a relatively short amount of time. Then if we're talking hundreds and hundreds of years ago, I would have to walk that far to go find them, to go get them. They probably wouldn't have moved that far away. We've lost a lot of connection. So how do we get back to that? I think it's an individual family choice. I don't think, at least in the country we live in, I don't think that we could make a blanket change to get back to that, because I don't think a lot of people would be interested in that, honestly. I think people are too interested in speed, on demand, and the addiction to disconnect.
Yeah, or maybe it's not coming back, because I know, like, we wouldn't go back to, like, the way things were. Like, you know, we've come this far in, like, this momentum of how it is now. And we're not going to necessarily go back to, like, how things were. But I just think, like, I don't know, like, I wonder, like, what we could do to, like, honor, like, the elderly, like, the aging population in, like, either people we know in our own lives, or just, like, people, like, in our community.
I think people need to get more involved. I think people need to spend a little bit more time. You know, if we asked the first 100 people that watch this show, when was the last time you volunteered? You know, do you even remember the last time you volunteered? And if you did volunteer, you know, I've talked about this in my classes. I talk about it frequently with my husband. It was in my wedding vows. My parents instilled the value of service to others so deeply in me that it's second nature to me, I think. Just, you know, maybe I don't do it as much as I should, or as often, or as deeply as I should, but I think that's missing. I think we're missing the value of being in service to other people. Acknowledging that somebody outside of ourselves. It's not all about me. It's, you know, it's not Olivia's world and everybody's living in it. We have to have some self-awareness and some self-reflection and realize that there's other people. Can you volunteer at a senior center? Can you sign up for that website, Lots of Helping Hands? Can you sign up to be a Meals on Wheels driver once a week? Can you sign up to be a companion at a local senior center? Can you, you know, post in your local newspaper that you're providing transportation for seniors to go to doctor's appointments? Can you actively search for opportunities to connect with the reason you're here, honestly? I mean, think about, if your grandparents weren't here, you wouldn't be here. So why do we kind of leave them out in the cold? I don't know. I don't know. I think we're too self-centered to think about people outside of ourselves. It's sad, really. I love when schools have community service requirements, because I think once you experience, again, maybe it's self-centered, but once you feel that it's the goodness feeling that you feel when you help somebody else, you want to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's totally valid.
So everybody should go do some community service and find a senior to help.
Yeah, and I agree, and I love that I didn't even have to ask you to list all the different volunteer opportunities that people can do, because that was going to be one of my questions.
There's so much you can do. You can, you know, get off the couch on a Saturday, go to the senior center and say, hey, you can do a background check on me. Here's a copy of my license. What do you need? How can I help you? I'm available on Saturdays from, 9 to 10. What do you need? You know how fast they would jump at that opportunity if somebody, they need volunteers. They want the help. You could just be doing something that you don't even think is helpful, but it is so helpful. Go to your local senior center, go to the library, ask what they need. Do they need help? Is there a support group that you could help facilitate something on the side? You could, help set up the snacks at the support group so that the facilitator doesn't have to. So many volunteer opportunities if we just take a little bit of time out of me.
I love that. Okay, so this is your call to do some volunteering.
Go do something for someone else that's not yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's not that hard. We have the time. I mean, how much time do we sit throughout the day, if you checked your Instagram right now, check how many hours you spent on Instagram the last week, right? That's a scary statistic to look at.
Yeah.
And I always blame it on, well, my business is so much on Instagram. I'm also scrolling, and, how much time did you watch Netflix last week? Can you take an hour of that to go help somebody else? Mm-hmm. Specifically seniors, because you're right, they're often forgot about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it must be even harder when, like, do you ever, what if they don't have a caregiver? Like, what if there's no one? Like, how do those people find help if they're, aging and they're alone?
The sad thing is that, so if you're living alone, you're aging, right, and you have nobody, you have no friends, you have no family, you have nothing.
Or if you don't even have a place to live, that's really
hard. That's really tough, because typically what happens, and it's so sad, and I'm sure someone watching is going to go, no, there's other ways, which is valid, but typically is that something bad happens to you and you go to the hospital, or someone finds you somewhere needing medical attention because you haven't eaten, or you're out, in the winter outside and you have, no jacket, no snow boots. Typically, medical emergency, you're going to the hospital and they're filing adult protective services for you, which is not a bad thing. I know, people get kind of scared that something bad is going to happen. It's really not. They can help you find someone like me, where I can come in and find some resources for you, some referrals for you. I can help get some education, connect you to different places. But a lot of times that's where nursing homes come in. I know nursing homes get a bad rap because, it's not a fancy schmancy $1 million gorgeous place with, a Michelin star menu and, the A+ everything. But it's a place to live. It's food. It's medical care. There are activities. There are services. So it might not look like A+ perfect, but there's something there. Mm-hmm. But if you really truly have nobody, like if you're living alone, usually it's, a neighbor calls with some concerns. Some people might not know that you can call Adult Protective Services. You can make an anonymous report. They're never going to find out that it was you. Mm-hmm. They might call 911 and say, I need a wellness check. I've called many times on past seniors that I've worked with that have lived alone that I was really concerned about. You can call the police, not necessarily 911, but you can call the police and ask for a wellness check and just say, I'm really worried about her. She hasn't opened the door in a few days, or, there's a few newspapers on the floor. I'm kind of worried about them. Can you just go check and make sure they're okay? If you're noticing that in somebody, then it's really helpful to see if they want to get set up with Meals on Wheels, because the Meals on Wheels driver acts as a wellness check, because they have to see you. Mm-hmm. They can't just drop the meal and go. They're not supposed to. Yeah. They're supposed to hand it to you, give it to somebody in the house. So if they're not, when I was working at that first job I got out of college, and I was helping set up services like that. So if they didn't answer the door, they would call me and say, hey, Joe didn't open the door today. I would have to call Joe. If he didn't answer the phone, I'm calling his emergency contact. If they don't know anything, I was calling hospitals, making sure he wasn't admitted. Mm-hmm. We had to find him. Mm-hmm. We had to get some sort of answer. So setting up some sort of wellness check is helpful. If you have elderly neighbors, just go check on them. Even that's volunteering, really. I mean, if you want to do the absolute bare minimum, just go check on them and make sure they're okay. Ask them if they need anything. Ask them to come over for dinner tonight. Mm-hmm. But it's awareness. We have to be aware of the people that are around us that might need some help. Mm-hmm. And if they don't want help, they don't want help, but at least you asked.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Alright, let's see what else I got. Do you want to refresh your drink or anything?
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
thanks.
Alright. Do you have any favorite, we kind of mentioned some, I think, any favorite support groups or charities that you'd like to shout out?
I love my support group, but I think one place in particular worth looking into for every caregiver. I know, again, you got to admit that you need some help. Everybody should look into Mind What Matters. It's a nonprofit that they have a podcast. They also do quite a bit of fundraising for caregivers to be able to apply for their caregiver relief fund. So I've referred many of my caregivers to them. A handful of them have actually gotten the grant. You get a grant and you can spend the money with how you want to get some respite. So I've had somebody that went away for the weekend. They paid for that.
Wow,
They paid for the care for the person at home. You know, if you are struggling to, say your person's going to a day program 3 days a week, and that's subsidized by your local elder services, but you need to add another day, and the elder services won't subsidize that day, you could use the grant to pay for that day for the next, 6 months or something. Take something off your plate. So Mind What Matters is a really good one to look into for caregivers, not only for the respite, but also, for some education. People are probably expecting me to say the Alzheimer's Association, but I disagree with some of their teachings. I used to teach for them. I no longer do. Who else would I want to call out that's a nonprofit? Got me off guard on that one.
It could be anything.
I would say look at your local elder services. In Massachusetts, if you just look up your aging services access point with your town, you can find them and ask them for any resources that are local to you. I think everybody should donate to their senior center if they have any, fundraisers, or if they need, sometimes they have little gift shops or bookstores or things, and you can donate stuff to that, and then whatever they sell, that money goes back to the senior center. Cool. Oh man, off the top of my head, who else would be a nonprofit that I'm sure as soon as I leave here I'll think of someone and go, oh, I should have mentioned them. Yeah. Or someone's watching this right now and thinking, wow, how did she not think of that one?
Well, we can always, you can let me know later and I can add the links in the description.
All right, I'm sure I'll think of someone I'll be able to send you.
Cool. You earlier mentioned that you stopped drinking recently.
Yes.
Was there any, or would you want to talk about any particular reason you stopped, or and also what you think about how drugs or alcohol could affect people?
Yeah. So if we go back to that Bredesen Seven, those 7 pillars of cognitive health, I know some people don't consider alcohol to be a toxin, but it is. It's, we don't need it. It's not great for your brain. So, alcohol and drugs, not really that great for your brain. There's some prescription drugs that are not really that great for your brain. There's, you have to weigh out cost and benefit. Everybody can make their own decision about that. I'm never one to preach, oh, you need to stop drinking. For me, I started noticing that it was affecting me. So outside of the time that I was drinking. And I've actually shared about this on Instagram, and I get so many comments and messages about, we're here to learn about dementia. We don't really care why you're not drinking.
Really?
And I always kind of think, we're making a connection here, people. Let's take care of our brains in your 30s so that, you have a healthier brain later. And also, it's just you you don't have to follow me on Instagram if you don't want to hear about what I have to say. But, so I started just noticing that even after one or two drinks, I just started having this kind of dreadful feeling that something had gone wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Even if, if I was out with a friend or whatever, and we didn't have an argument, nothing bad happened, nothing negative, I would just have this, like, stomach feeling, and I tried to describe this to my husband yesterday, and he was kind of asking, like, stomach sick, some stomach, and I said, no, kind of like nervous stomach, that stomach feeling, gut, right? Yeah, just something wasn't right. So I kind of cut back to only drinking for special occasions, and I'm sure people that seriously stopped drinking are going to be like, oh, come on, like, in my mind, that was kind of the first step that I took. Christmas or a birthday party or a family gathering, I would have a drink. I was a Prosecco lover. I loved Prosecco. Loved it. I probably still would, but I stopped drinking. So I cut back a lot, but it's still just that dread feeling was there. I don't know, maybe that was like deep-rooted anxiety or something. I don't know. It just didn't sit right. Yeah. So after my honeymoon, we got married last September.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We got back from our honeymoon. I remember, so the day we flew home, we were in the airport. We were at a Mexican restaurant, I think. We were in Mexico, so we were in a Mexican restaurant. I got a margarita. And that was the last drink I had. So I got home and I was like, I think I'm just going to stop drinking for a little bit and just see how I feel, because I just don't like how I feel when I have it. I just don't need it. So I just stopped cold turkey. I mean, I guess that would be cold turkey. I wouldn't consider that I had a problem. I wouldn't consider that I was over consuming. I think I was drinking frequently, not large amounts, but we would have a bottle of wine with dinner pretty frequently, or oh, it's nice outside, have a beer on the porch, and gluten-free beer, but have a beer on the porch, or but it was frequent, not high volume, but frequent. So that was the end of September, and I haven't had anything since, and I obviously have not had that dread feeling, because I think those two things were connected. And it was kind of hard at the beginning, because it's a social expectation, right? It's, you go out to dinner, everybody gets a drink, or you're going out with friends, or, oh, let's, grab a drink after work. Or, it's a celebration. There's Prosecco. We're celebrating something. Or it's expected. And it's funny because people don't say, oh, you don't do cocaine? Why don't you do cocaine? But people will say, oh, you don't drink? Why don't you drink? Like, what is that? It's because I don't drink. I think it's the one drug or toxin or whatever that people feel comfortable asking you why you don't do it. It's abnormal not to participate. And it was hard at the beginning, because when I stopped, it was right before the holidays. So it was Halloween, it was Thanksgiving, it was Christmas, it was New Year's right when I stopped. And that was really hard, because A, it was an expectation, and B, at some points I felt pretty judged. Like, you think you're better because you're not drinking. And eventually that got less and less. I don't know if the judgment got less, but I didn't really care, because I know I feel better without it, and I feel a lot clearer. So I know the interactions that I'm having are genuine and true, and I don't have to worry about whatever happened, or oops, I said something I shouldn't have, or the truth serum, like, oh, you wouldn't have said that sober. Drunk, drunk words or sober thoughts. I don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see when other people drink, you're like, that's not cool. Or someone said something kind of off color, and you're like, it wasn't great. I'm not going to be involved in that. I wasn't, and I think that it's getting kind of trendy now. I think a lot of people are offering more non-alcoholic issues, not non-alcoholic drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier.
Yeah.
There's a lot more availability. It's not just when you go to a restaurant, your option is soda or juice. There's other options now. I was kind of thrown off guard on Friday. We went out to dinner with some friends, and I said, "Can I have a margarita with no tequila?" And she said, "Do you want rum?" And immediately I almost was like, "Yes, thank you." Or my immediate reaction was just to say thank you, and I just kind of, it took me a second to register it, and I was like, no, nothing in it, no alcohol, no tequila, no nothing. So it's gotten a lot easier. There's a lot more offerings. I think people are a lot more accepting of it. I think a lot more people are trying it, especially after January, when people do dry January, and then they feel good, and they just kind of extend it. And it's hard if you're around people that are drinking, even if you don't consider yourself to have had a problem. Like, I don't consider myself to have been an alcoholic, but being around people while they're drinking when you have just stopped is tough. You have to have mental strength to say, no, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm gonna continue doing it, because it's easy to just say, oh, you know what? Yeah, it's been 7 months. I'll just have a glass of wine. That's okay. I did it for long enough. I didn't really have a problem. It's if you want to do that, sure. If you just want to stop drinking for 6 months, sure. Whatever floats your boat. But if you're around it, it's hard. You have to want it for yourself. Just like, I want to, take care of my brain. I have that genetic factor. I know too much about dementia to not want Alzheimer's, and part of that is alcohol. If I want to take care of my brain, I gotta take care of it.
Yeah, so when people drink at all kinds of different levels, but like any level of alcohol intake is gonna affect your brain to some capacity, right? Like long term. Yeah. So
yeah, and I mean, if you're not, if you want to start somewhere, it's better to cut back than to just say, oh, forget it. If you can't have zero alcohol, it's better to cut it in half, or only drink on the special occasions, or I only drink on the weekends. It's better than nothing. But are you still putting some sort of toxin in your body? Yeah. But brain health isn't at the forefront of everybody's mind. And it's especially not at the forefront of people that are in their 20s and 30s. Because you and I aren't thinking about our brain health in our 80s. I mean, I am, but that's because I'm submerged in this, the general population is not thinking about preventing Alzheimer's in your 20s and 30s. We think we don't have to worry about that until then, but those brain changes are happening now. But, most 22, 23-year-olds are not thinking about that. So, depends on what you value and what education you have. If you don't know that, I'm sure some people watching this are going to say, I didn't know that. I didn't know that the development of the disease starts decades before symptoms even occur. But if you didn't know that,
and that's like another part of the reason why kids aren't supposed to drink. Okay, like the drinking age is 21 in this country, And when you start, that's because when you start drinking before your brain is fully developed, that's gonna mess with the development of your brain.
Yeah.
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 So.
And your brain isn't fully developed at that point. I mean, you're what, 26 by the time your brain is fully developed?
Even when you're 21, it's
not fully developed, so you don't have the full, you know, not that 21-year-olds don't know right from wrong, but do you know right and wrong? Can you make judgment calls? Can you, there's a lot more than just, there's a lot more to it of your brain developing to the point of being mature. Mm-hmm. And if you're now flooding it with alcohol, that's going to kind of set your brain backwards. Mm-hmm. The judgment goes out the window. I mean, your judgment changes, your vision can change, your ability to control your body, your ability to communicate. A lot of different things can change, and that's happening somewhere. That's happening in your brain. Your brain is what's controlling everything in your body. So if you're now putting a toxin in it, and now you notice your speech is slurring and your eyes are kind of shifty, or your body is kind of, moving, you're altering your brain. Mm-hmm. Not in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of have a personal relationship. Well, I mean, everybody has their own personal relationship with alcohol, right? I guess. So I've had family members who have gone through problems and are now going through recovery, and I have enjoyed supporting them in that very much, and I really like that I feel like AA and other programs like it are very, after just going through my own spiritual awakening and experience that huge change in my own life, seeing the way those programs work is very similar and very parallel. I feel like, so I love learning about those programs, and I just love that they exist, and I don't personally I wouldn't say I had a problem with alcohol either. Kind of, I went through that 20s and 30s, all my friends are partying, and my foundation with my friends mostly was because of partying, so that's kind of that'll keep you going.
Yeah.
But since the pandemic, obviously, kind of we've kind of spread apart a little bit, so definitely getting some distance from that has helped it to just be a lot easier for me. And I'm not gonna say I've completely stopped drinking. I have a little drink here and there, but for me, I don't get a sense of dread or anything, but I always almost immediately just feel sick when I drink. So I don't like to drink.
And I always I kind of want to try this the next time someone asks me why I stopped drinking, because it's the social norm to drink, right? So if someone says they're not drinking, it's, why not? Why don't you drink? And I kind of want to respond. I haven't done this yet. Maybe the next time someone asks me, I will. But I kind of want to say, well, why do you drink?
Yeah. What's the point?
I can imagine that would, not that someone would be offended, but kind of taken aback of, well, why are you asking me that? Well, I mean, you're asking me why I stopped. I would like to know why you started. I don't know how that would go. Maybe it depends on who it would be that asked me. But, I mean, truly, think about the reason you are drinking. Why are you drinking? And I have no judgment. If you want to drink, I mean, I'm not holier than thou because I stopped drinking 7 months ago. I'm not better than anybody else. This is just what works for me. So, I mean, that could be a genuine answer, that I like the buzz. It feels good. It's a social lubricant. It makes interactions with new people easier. It's fun for me. That's perfect for you. If that's your reason for drinking, that is awesome. But if you need it, to have an interaction, I would challenge you to think about why. Why are you drinking? And if you can answer that and you're good with whatever your answer is, that's you. That has nothing to do with me. That, you know, I have no problem with drinking. But if it's causing issues, if it's causing danger, if it's causing a safety issue for you, if it's causing relationship issues for you, if you're drinking and driving, if it's an issue, then you should absolutely find some support. Find some community. Like everything we're talking about is coming back to connection and community, right? You gotta find who's gonna support you in that piece of your life. Just like with dementia caregiving, not everybody in your life is gonna be able to understand and be supportive of that, because that's not something they can relate to. Just like stopping drinking. If you're considering stopping drinking because you're realizing, maybe I need a break, maybe I just need some distance, right? Find some other people that feel that same way. I guarantee that there's somebody in your life that you know that has toyed with no alcohol. Find that person to get a little bit of extra support from. Because in anything that we've talked about today, you don't want to be on an island by yourself. That's just going to stick you down that dark hole. But if you have connection, if you have some sort of, you know, social interaction, or just knowing that somebody else can relate to the experience that you're having right now, it really helps.
Yeah, there's definitely, and there's someone else that I'm gonna have an interview with that I'm really excited about. She helps people in recovery, and yeah, I know a lot of resources for like even sober curious people. So,
and you don't even have to, you know, I feel kind of bad almost when I hit like I have an app on my phone and it tracks how many days I've not drank, and it will sometimes give me like a little bubble and say, you know, oh, you've hit 200 days, or you hit 5 months, or you hit whatever. And sometimes I almost feel imposter syndrome around it, because I see underneath like the ticker that shows people that have shared theirs within the app, and it shares, you know, someone that's now 4 days sober from alcohol after, you know, they had 5 years and then they slipped and something happened and now they're at 4 days or something. And I just think the struggle that some other people have gone through to get to 7 months or even 4 days, it wasn't hard for me in that I had to quit a substance that I was addicted to, or a habit that I was addicted to. It was hard in that I felt like going into a social situation, I would feel judgment, and I would feel that I was the outsider, I was the other. I am nowhere near the experience that some of these other people have had, and I think sometimes when I see the number of days, and then I see some of the stories from the other people, I think, wow, like, who cares that I have 200 days of not drinking? It's not like I didn't need AA, I didn't need a program, I don't need a sponsor, I could go back to drinking. It's not a problem for me that has affected my life. But there's so many people that it has, and their struggle is so much more than mine, or their struggle was so much, you know, more important than mine, or I think it comes back to that feeling of comparison and thinking, well, mine's not valuable enough. Mine's not the struggle enough. And so, you know, if you're listening to this, watching this, and you're wanting to start, but you feel like, oh, well, I don't have a problem, so it doesn't really matter, you know, do it anyway. You could do it silently. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to, you know, but you're still doing something that's good for yourself. I just have to keep reminding myself of that I made a choice for a reason, and that reason is good enough for me. And if it's not good enough for other people, then who cares, right?
Exactly.
Coming back to that, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I commend that choice, and I admire that choice, and
Thank you.
I think that's awesome that you're doing that. It's just like, it's gonna benefit you more.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna hurt you in any way, you know, like.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's just gonna be awesome for you. Yeah. So, reading a couple of the articles you sent me, I noticed that some of the tips you give, or maybe a lot of the tips you give, coincide with the concept of being present and intentional in daily tasks.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't write a question after. So, even if we're not dementia care focused,
mm-hmm.
these kind of things can really help anyone, I think, in their daily life, right?
Yeah. If you do you just mindlessly I remember I think it might have been in one of my dementia trainings, I don't remember, but if you sat here right now and I said, pretend like you're brushing your teeth, you're probably going to do the same pattern every time. Mm-hmm. And we don't think about it, but we automatically just brush our teeth the same pattern, the same way, every single time. Some people start on the left, some people start on the right, some people start up, some people start down. It's just a habit that's just ingrained in you. So if you're just mindlessly blowing through your day,
autopilot.
Yeah, like, what's the benefit of that? It's slowing down and being intentional about everything that you're doing. Take some practice. You have to want to do it, and you have to think about why you're doing it. Maybe you use that time to slow down your breath a little bit and just relax your shoulders a little bit. Maybe you use the time when you're making your bed to really just think about, I'm setting up my space for the day. I'm setting up, success for my day. Maybe you have some intention for the day that you want to set. And I know, some people are probably going to be like, nah, that's silly or whatever. But you really think about it. If you start your day a certain way, especially when you're getting ready, if you're intentional about the things that you're doing, you can have a better day. Mm-hmm. And again, aside from being a dementia caregiver, everybody has stress. Everybody has something going on in their life that's stressful to them. So if you take these little pockets of time to do something intentional, your brain isn't just like spiraling, swirling everywhere. It's actually grounded in something. Mm-hmm. The rest of your day could be good. Mm-hmm. And again, you can use this dementia concept, but in separate of dementia life, you could have a bad hour, but that doesn't mean you had a bad day. You could, chunk it up. That's really helpful if you're trying to be more intentional about your day. Maybe you had a bad morning. Maybe you had a bad hour, but that doesn't mean it was a bad day. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it was a bad week. I don't know how many people I've talked to that say, oh, I had a bad day. Well, what happened? And they name like one or two things that took 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Why did you let that ruin your whole day? Yeah. Be intentional about this happened, putting stop sign here, that's gone, moving forward. Mm-hmm. But you have to be intentional about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I personally, for me, I think the morning is so important. Like, I really have to set intention and, like, I have to do my breathing exercises first thing or they're just not going to get done. Mm-hmm. And then, like, and, you have to, for me, personally, it's like a prayer. I say, like, bless this day. This is going to be a great day. Mm-hmm. I think that's
just like
so
simple.
Easy thing. Yeah.
It's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
Think about your thoughts. You would never say to your best friend, wow, that, you suck, or, you look terrible today, or, that sweater looks awful on you. You would never say that to your best friend. You just would not. Why do we say that to ourselves? Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, and think about the words that you say. I do this too. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said to my husband, oh, you know, I don't like this, or, you know, this doesn't feel good, this outfit, or whatever. It's comparison. I'm comparing to somebody else, or whatever. You would never say that to someone else that you loved, but yet we think it's okay to say it about ourselves, or to ourselves, or to somebody else about ourselves. But if you set an intention that's positive, just keep repeating that in your head. My husband does a deliberate cold exposure, like a cold tub in the morning, and I just started doing it. I was gonna start April 1st, and then I was like, it's still too cold. It's really cold. So then I was gonna start May 1st because I'm, you know, type A. It should be on the 1st of the month, but he was like, why not just start today? Who cares? Just start. So I started yesterday. And it took longer for me to actually get in the tub than I was actually in it. I was only in for 2 minutes. I was like, I'm just gonna do 30 seconds. I want to do 30 seconds. And he was like, no, you're gonna do 2 minutes. You can do 2 minutes. Yep. and then in my head, I was kind of like, yeah, you know what? If I just keep repeating to myself 30 seconds, I'm cutting myself off from getting to full 2 minutes. Or if I just say, oh, it's gonna be painful. It's gonna be painful. No, reframe it and think, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this because I want to achieve blah, blah, blah. And I think it was Andrew Huberman that talks about deliberate cold exposure, and I was listening to some of his comments on it, and he was saying, you hit a wall. You hit a mental wall, but you have to just be able to get over that wall. Just the one that's right in front of you right now. There's probably 50 after that, but just worry about this one. You'll get to those later. Then once you get over that one, okay, now let's work on this wall. And if you just look at the problem or the issue or the stressor or whatever that's right in front of you, work on that. Okay, now go to the next one. Again, with those chunks, right? Just a little bit at a time. And if you just think, okay, I'm gonna get through the first 30 seconds. I'm gonna be in for 2 minutes or whatever it is. You can't focus on it's gonna be cold, it's gonna be painful, it's gonna be cold, it's gonna be painful. You have to focus on, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this because I want to get over those mental walls. And if I can do that in the tub, I can do that outside of the tub. And this morning when I got in, oh my gosh, my poor husband. I got in and he was like, don't focus on the cold. Just relax your body. Picture your heart as being really warm. And I was like, shut up. And I just screamed at him to shut up because I was like, if I focus on picture your heart being warm, picture your body not being cold, my brain is going to go to, it's cold. My brain is going to go to the negative. I have to focus on lengthening my exhale. As long as I focus on that, the time is going to just fly by. So if you're constantly just thinking about don't and the negative, get rid of that and just focus on the positive. Like, you didn't wake up this morning and say, don't have a bad day. If you're focusing on don't have a bad day, you're already focusing on the negative.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to focus on I'm going to have a good day. But we so often just default to negative.
Yeah, so true.
Don't have a bad day. Don't be cold. Well, don't focus on that. Focus on the good. Focus on just breathe. Focus on it's going to be a good day. And then you're not even putting the negative thought in there.
Exactly. So how was it in the end? Like, do you think you're going to keep doing it?
Well, now that I've started, I'm like, now I have to keep doing it. I got to do it every day. I mean, it's not, some people's I'm sure is much colder. You know, ours I think was 54 degrees yesterday. I didn't temp it today. But, so I'm sure that I know people do much colder than that. So, but again, comparison, I got to move away from that and the negative. It's really, obviously it's refreshing because it's cold, but it kind of jazzes you up to really feel like, okay, I can do that. I can sit with these uncomfortable feelings. I can sit with being uncomfortable because, don't focus on the pain, don't focus on the cold. If you're just focusing on, I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I'm not going to die. I'm in 54-degree water on my patio. The worst that happens is I stand up, I get out, and I grab the towel. Like, it's not the end of the world. But if I can do that, And I can train my brain to be in uncomfortable situations. I can train my body to be in uncomfortable situations and use my breath and my mind to be able to move through it. What else can I do? What else am I capable of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that this is like picking up. Everybody's like jumping on this like it's the new big thing, because this is gonna wake people up like big time. People are gonna be like, wow, I have magic powers. Like,
you feel amazing after you get out and you're like, my day is ready. He was like, you're gonna go into that podcast and you're gonna feel great. And I was like, it's true though. You get out and you're like, good for me. Like, you know what? Not everybody just got in an ice cold tub this morning. And you know, it just, you feel really good. It floods your brain. It kind of throws you off for a minute, but you feel proud. You feel like, you know what? If I can do that, I'm good. What else can I do? And if you just like it for the physical, because it has a ton of physical benefits, but if you just like it for the physical, that's awesome. But if you can really get into that mental space of, I can be in uncomfortable spaces and be okay. And not only be okay, but get all the way through it, and then do it again tomorrow, you're training yourself to be able to handle other situations. Then, you know, later today when something happens and I'm uncomfortable, or I have an interaction with someone that wasn't fantastic, my brain is already trained to know it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be in this space of outside of your bubble. It's okay.
Awesome.
We have to retrain our brains.
Yep. I thought this was a really good one. So my friend Emily asked this question. Thank you, Emily. Do you feel emotional drain from a job that may require a lot of empathy? Is there anything you do to recharge or maintain your emotional health while in this profession?
I used to really feel it after. I think I was absorbing too much from the people I was working with. At one point, I left the field altogether for 6 months, and I was a flight attendant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was like, I can't do this anymore. And there was one job that I had that I actually was, I was supposed to be doing dementia training, and their recruiter left right before I started, so I got put into the recruiter position, and I cried every day at that job. I came home miserable. I hated it. And so those two experiences, when I burnt out the first time and then when I had that job, I couldn't leave and have the door close. I took it home with me, and that's when I realized this is not good. It's not healthy. I had to be able to leave work at work. As much as this is a person-centered, empathy-heavy, human interaction thing that I do for work, I have to be able to leave it at work. I mean, I will help anybody. Anybody has a dementia question, I will help anybody. I absolutely, I'll be at the grocery store and talk to someone about dementia. It doesn't matter. It's my life. But it has to stop somewhere. Because once I started to take it home, I couldn't turn my brain off from it. And it really started to affect me. It really, I just started absorbing too much of the emotions from the caregivers I was working with. And I think that happens with a lot of people that are kind of empathic or have a lot of, anybody that works in human services. We absorb it. You have to find a way to either release it or close the door behind you. You have to, so I really started, I mean, when I was leaving when I was a memory care director and I was leaving that facility, I would stand in the doorway before I left and try to picture like a shower, and knowing when I walked out of that door frame, anything that was on me for the day was washed off. And it sounds really silly if you're not, you know, maybe that's a little, you know, woo-woo for some people, doing some visualization, but I really had to picture like anything that's stuck on me right now, I have to shake it off before I get in my car and drive home. I have to put an end point to it. So either visualizing that or finding a hobby or something that you love that really fills you up, because it does drain you. You know, it's a job where I'm giving and giving and giving, and although yes, I get thanks from caregivers, and my love language is words of affirmation. So if a caregiver sends me an email and says, I tried what you said and it worked, that jazzes me up for like days. I love it. But you got to find what fills you up, and if you don't know what fills you up, you got to kind of dip your toes in some waters and figure out what helps you. For me, if I don't go for a walk and lift really heavy weights, then I am not a nice person that day. Like if I didn't move my body, it's not going to be a good day for me. I notice a difference, so I need to channel it out of myself. But it's different for everybody. Everybody has, you know, it might be, you know, going for a walk after work. It might be, you know, reading a book. It might be listening to a podcast. It might be swimming. Whatever your thing is, if visualization isn't it, then a hobby or a task or something that helps you decompress, you need it if you're going to be working in human services, because you absorb what people have, because it's got to go somewhere. If they're releasing it, it has to go somewhere, and I tend to take it on.
Yeah, I like that you said like the visualization. That I think that can really help a lot of people, and sometimes you do have to really let go of things and like picture yourself letting go of things. I mean, like even animals do that, right? Like if a rabbit is like running away from another animal and it gets away, and then like the first thing it does is like shake off its body and like sends that energy into the ground.
Yeah.
Like everybody has like a way to like release.
Yeah, I remember actually reading something recently, and I think it was about kids. I don't think it was about adults, but I'm like, well, if it works for kids, it's gotta work for adults. Where they said, you know, if they're just inconsolable, if they're just crying and crying, and there's nothing you can do, water or sunlight are the two things. And they said, you know, either put them in a bath or a bathtub, or put a warm washcloth on, some sort of water situation, or going outside. You know, go for a walk outside, put them in the stroller outside, put them in the yard outside with the bare feet, get some grounding, whatever that looks like. But so now I try to think about that if I'm having a day where I can't release it through whatever I try. I have found that a shower really helps. It like you know, and maybe that's, you know, physically washing it off because the visualization isn't working, or but if you, I don't know, I mean, it was worth trying if you're having something where you can't shake it off. And this applies to any sort of stress, I guess, trying to go outside or some sort of water exposure.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's something to think about and try, definitely. All right, so I pulled up my list of questions that I ask everyone at the end of the interview, so we're going to go for the home stretch. What are you here for on Earth? Maybe not to do, but what are you here to learn or experience?
What am I here to learn or experience? I think connection. I think somehow being of service, being outside myself, and learning that, you know, there's value in outside of me, outside of myself. There's value in other people. There's value in other people's experiences. There's, you know, being of service. of helping other people that need it or that want it. I think that there's people that just that kind of come from a heart-centered space, and I think I got that. So I think that, you know, growing up, or even maybe just, you know, a few years ago, I kind of tended to like to fix things, like to, you know, if there was conflict with a friend or a sibling or, you know, a boyfriend or whatever, you want to fix it, you want to make it better. I want to, you know, get in a space where everything's okay. But it's okay to have those bumps in that uncomfortable space. It's just moving through it and figuring out how to navigate that. So I think switching that lesson from, I'm not going to fix everything, but I can help. You know, I might not be able to cure dementia. I might not be able to cure everything that ails every caregiver, but if I can be a little bit of a Band-Aid, if I, you know, I've used the analogy of being like an ice cube in a cup of tea. You know, you're the tea bag, you're in this hot water all the time. You are in it. It's surrounding you, you're drowning in it constantly. But if I can just be a little ice cube in that water and cool it off for a little bit for you, then I did my job.
Wow. Nice. Love that. Okay, what can we expect to see from you in the golden future of humanity? What do you see your role as in our transition to higher consciousness?
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Can you read that again?
Yeah. What can we expect to see from you in the golden future of humanity? What do you see your role as in our transition to higher consciousness?
I think, I mean, if I can touch as many caregivers' lives and help as many people as I can, then I think I did my job. I think what I would like to see, or what people could expect or hope to see, is that I can expand to touching as many caregivers as I can, and being that ice cube for people that have none, that are just boiling water all the time. And if I can do that, and I've made connection with other people, and I've made, you know, paths that I wouldn't have had otherwise, maybe I can connect other people that wouldn't have connected. I mean, look at my support group. These women have been together for 4 years, and some of them have never met in person, but they have such strong relationships with each other. And, you know, I hate to sound self-centered and cocky, but I'm kind of like, you know what? I did that. I did that. Like, I created that connection for these people. I facilitated that. And these people now have relief outside of me, and they now have relationship. They now have connection with each other because of something that I created, and that's just like gold to me. So,
oh my god, yeah, things like that like get me really emotional, because like that can be so humbling.
Yeah, and it's crazy to see. As much as I would love to work with caregivers, you know, forever until their person dies, sometimes I only meet with caregivers one time in my one-on-one sessions. Sometimes I only see them once. And at the beginning, I really was feeling like, wow, did I just not hit the nail on the head for them? Like, did it not resonate with them? Maybe I wasn't the right person for them. And then, you know, started kind of cycling into that imposter syndrome again of maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing when I'm teaching people. But I really had to shift that thought into, you know what? I gave them what I needed in that hour, in that session, and now they're good. Now they don't need me anymore. And that's the goal, is that you don't need me. You can do this on your own. You can do it. I'm here if you need me, but you don't need me. And that shift of mindset was huge for me, where I was like, that was a successful meeting. It's absolutely successful if someone meets with me once a week for the next 6 months. That's totally fine, because that means we have more work to do. But if I just met with someone once and then they never came back, they never needed anything else from me, I did my job. I did what they needed.
You planted the seed.
Yeah. And they didn't need me anymore, and that's okay. Yeah.
Wow. What's your highest and brightest vision of the future without worrying about how to get there? Like, the world.
My vision of the future? Like, of my future?
You can say your future and or, like...
Everybody's future?
Yeah.
Oh, I would just... Everybody's future. Wow, that's a big question. What would I see as the brightest future? People being a little bit more compassionate. You know, like, I started noticing, I don't know why, it's, again, maybe it's, you know, once you see a red car, you see a ton of red cars, but when I notice now, if someone walks in front of a door, opens a door in front of me, they go inside a store before me, if there's that weird 5-second gap between when I would get to the door and you do that kind of awkward jog to get to the door to catch it from them, how many times someone will wait and hold the door versus how many times they just walk in. And like, do you not have 3 seconds to wait and hold the door for another human? Or, you know, just general lack of awareness of other people around us. I think people need to just kind of wake up a little bit and realize there's others outside of myself. And it's okay to take a few seconds and care for those other people, but I think we need a little bit more focus on compassion. It's just like, you know, the volunteer topic where we were talking about taking care of seniors and why they kind of get left out in the cold and people needing to go volunteer. Take a few seconds out of your day and care about somebody else outside of yourself. I think we need a little bit more of that. That would be a golden future for everybody. Golden future for me. You know, I have my family and my husband has his family, but we want to have a family and teach those values to our family.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a huge part of the future.
Yeah, because, you know, there's people that are going to come after us. There's kids that are going to come after us and kids that are going to come after them. But if no one's teaching them that, then it's never going to happen.
It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how many people, like, actually think about the future, but, like, before I, like, kind of, like, opened up my mind, I never thought about the future. I didn't think about anything. I was like, once I finish high school, my life's gonna be over. What am I gonna do? I'm just gonna, like, I don't even know. Like, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to think about and realize that, like, not just our own future, but, like, this world, like you said, like, this world is gonna keep going on. Humanity is going to keep going on after we're gone.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to die. At some point, we're all going to come to the end of our life. And what impact do you want to have had? You know, whether that means you're a parent or not, you know, if you don't have kids, you can still leave some sort of impact after you're gone. But what does that look like? What did you do? What value did you provide to other people? Again, we need to remember that there's people outside of ourselves. If you only care about yourself your entire life, that's the impact that you made.
Yeah.
But
I think you kind of missed the point.
Yeah. Yeah, like, what did you do? What value did you provide? And maybe that was just yourself getting ahead. Yeah, maybe you missed the point. Or maybe you were a lesson for someone else. Maybe someone else learned from you, and that is your legacy that you left, and that's fantastic. But I think, I don't think, especially people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, really think about, at some point, we're all gonna die. I mean, I think about that all the time because this is my life. I'm submerged in end of life all the time. At some point, when you're gone, what impact have you left?
Yeah. Definitely something to think about. What do you want to plug, if anything that you didn't already mention?
And I think if you're a caregiver and you're not feeling supported or you don't feel like you have accurate current information, you gotta find it. you know, I always am taking new clients. I'm always taking new families to work with. So, you know, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. You're more than welcome to reach out to the Alzheimer's Association for all I care. You know, you can get your information from anywhere. You can go to Google and find whatever you want. But if it's not working, you got to do something different. You know, you can't, it's just like the shin kick, right? If I'm just kicking your shin over and over and over, it's still going to hurt until you do something different. Get your education, get your support, find your support circle, find the people that are going to understand it around you for whatever situation and you know, whatever experience that you're having, you need to get support around that thing. And, you know, you can only do your best and let everything else go.
Mm-hmm. So, if people want to find you, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
So the easiest way to reach me is through Instagram at Purple Hydrangea Dementia. That link on my Instagram has all of my offerings on it. I do have a free class coming up if you live in Massachusetts, but I have online classes, I have in-person classes, I have one-on-one sessions, I have that ability for people to get financial assistance. At some point, the support group will reopen. Right now it's full, but at some point that will reopen. But Instagram's the fastest way, easiest way to find me. And, you know, I'm always open to questions. I do send out a weekly newsletter. So, you know, there are options to get education and support for free. And to get financial help if you need it.
Awesome.
So, Instagram's the easiest way.
Well, we'll definitely link all that below. And I just wanted to ask you if there's any questions that I didn't ask you that you wished I'd ask. What are they? And please feel free to answer them now.
I don't think so, but I do remember when I was interviewing staff, when I was working in memory care and I was interviewing staff, I always had a question that I ended my interviews with. So I have a question for you.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
If you were an appliance or a tool in the kitchen, what would you be and why?
Oh my god. Wow, my kitchen is not that very well stocked. I just, you know, it's like, I don't really know a lot about kitchen utensils. Let me think. You know, I love coffee and tea and stuff, so I'd probably be a kettle. In fact, I just got a new kettle donated to me.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know if you noticed, but my kitchen is like a strawberry kitchen. It's like a strawberry theme. So somebody just gave me a strawberry kettle.
That's so fun.
So I think that's what it would be.
A strawberry
kettle. It's so cute, and
I like it.
Yeah, and I can make delicious tea and coffee.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on my show, Olivia. It was like a really nice time talking with you.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was Olivia. Hope you liked our chat, and definitely check out the links, and see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you're not already, please remember to like this video and subscribe to support this channel. Don't forget to check the links for today's guest in the description below. If you like watching my podcast and you think to yourself, I'd love to be a guest on that show, well, do something, get curious, get interested, be active in your communities. We all as individuals have great value to offer, and more than that, significance in being uniquely you. I invite you to open yourself up to every possibility you've ever dreamed of for yourself, or held back from letting yourself even dream. To quote Bonnie Ray, give them something to talk about. How about love? Really, put love in everything you do and watch miracles happen. Give us something to talk about that aligns with my mission of community, love, and awakening higher consciousness, and I'll have you on as my guest to ask, what is it like to be you? Keep up with me to be notified of bonus content when it becomes available, including tarot readings for my guests, opening ceremonies, breathing exercises, and more, including the incredible Breath 101 practice with Karina Karjan.
in a world where dreams come true.
I really think anybody can learn a lot from this conversation. There's really so much gold. And what else did I want to say? Timmy's too cute. I can't even think.